welcome to the Soccer Coaching Podcast, brought to you in association with our friends at Soccer Coach Weekly, reflecting our shared ambition to help coaches have the most effective, enjoyable and successful coaching journey for them and their players. We hope you enjoyed this episode and thanks for listening. Welcome everyone to the podcast. I'd say quickly, Ray, thank you so much for putting this together. You've managed to find a fantastic ensemble of guests for us for our first round table. So well done for that. How have you been and are you looking forward to the conversation?
Yeah, all good. Listen, I delved into the phone book and we wanted to go onto the grass this week, didn't we? Like it really hit the kind of technical, tactical corner, the session planning corner. As opposed to theory, and we've covered a lot of ground over the last few weeks in particular. Circle the wagon, so to speak, and hopefully we have a good chat today.
Brilliant, Ray. Well, cracking job to get everyone together. Look, well, thank you for everyone that has jumped on this podcast to go through what's going to be a really good topic, I think, and a good conversation. Dwell too much, quick as we can, but obviously let's introduce who we've got. And if you don't mind just kind of saying, guess listeners are going to know you guys already, so just introduce who you are and a bit about what you do and stuff, if that's okay, and then we'll get into the conversation. So Peter, do you want to just go first?
Hi everybody. Thank you for having me on. Peter Prickett. I've written various books on coaching, including Principles of Play and the 3v3 books, and coach most days of the week for Brentford FC Community Trust. At the moment, I've done other things before that, but that's where I am right now. And yeah, always dabbling and working away on sessions and books and all good stuff.
Well, I'm sure most of our listeners will know you, Peter, already. You've been on the podcast before, so thank you for that. And you're doing some great work. I think at some point we're going to get you back on if we can to talk more about the 3v3 and what's going on there, if you're happy for that. But you mentioned about I know you're working, I believe, on another book around that, which would be great for all, with the changes going on and all those new coaches are picking up things. So at some point, hopefully we can share an update on how that's going. Although I'm sure some of this will also come up on the podcast today. But for those who want more details around that, you are definitely the man to reach out to. So we'll pick that up later. Craig, if you don't mind just saying hello and what it is you do and where you are and stuff, if that's okay.
Sure. How you doing, guys? I'm very happy to be on the podcast. As you said, my name's Craig Birtwistle. I'm an A licensed coach, originally from Birmingham, now living in the good old US of A, with all my 3 kids and my lovely wife, who are sick of me talking about football. So it's great for me to be on a podcast. I have a very big hunger for coach education. So I have a YouTube channel called Session Share. Feel free to look it up. And happy to get involved in the conversation.
Brilliant, Craig. Thank you so much. Where are you in the States, Craig?
New Jersey.
Oh, fantastic. I've just come back from New York, mate. Just come back.
Very
good. To go. So, very good. Yeah. Very good. Brilliant. Well, thanks, Craig. Looking forward to the conversation. And Ben, obviously the hardest working man all of us to make, because you are live on the grass with kids running around running soccer camp. So we're all sitting at home, just all in places, relaxing and pretending we work, and you're out there doing it, mate. So a quick introduction, mate, of what you and what it is you're currently doing.
Hi, I'm Ben Andreos. I'm a Cat 1 Academy coach, and I coach all levels, to be fair. As you said, today I'm on a football camp. I coach development centres, I coach our advanced centres, and then of an evening I coach at a Cat 1 Academy. So really sort of I love coaching technical stuff. I'm in the foundation phase, so really looking to hone in on that technical side of things with players. So hopefully when they go into their YDP phases, then hopefully they're technically good enough to progress through and then start learning the tactical side of the game.
Brilliant. Well, we're going to come on to more about that actually in the different phases during this conversation, I'm sure, Ben, but thank you. But just for those that are watching on YouTube and can see that you're moving around, do you want to, you won't say exactly where you are, obviously, but am I right in thinking you are currently in the middle of running, not only doing this podcast, but also running a soccer camp right now? Is that right?
Yeah, so we've got, we run our holiday camps through half-term periods, and I'm at one today. I'm at a school where we run our program. At the moment, they're all eating lunch, so I've escaped for a couple of minutes just to speak to you guys, and then I'm going to go back out onto the grass in a bit.
Brilliant, Ben. Well, if we have to lose you a bit earlier because you've got other things going on, we totally understand. But thank you for making time for us, and it shows you that men can multitask, but also as football coaches, we've got to be in three places at once all the time, right? And you're proving
100%.
it. And this podcast, brilliant. Okay. Well, I think that, again, this was Ray's idea, and I think it's a great idea. If we're going to get people like you guys all together in one room for a conversation, we'd be crazy not to cover the topic of training sessions. Like, it's just crying out for that. So I'll let Ray say a bit more about what we're trying to get out of the conversation. Then I'll come in with the first question, if that's okay, and we'll go from there. But go on, Ray, just a bit about what we're going to talk about for the next 45 minutes or so, and why you thought it was important to bring up this topic.
Yeah, I mean, when the two of us sort of put our heads together a few weeks ago, we've spent our time. We spoke about AI and we spoke about several other bits and pieces. And we kind of said, coaching is a funny profession because I think at one point everyone felt like all we did was talk about sessions. And then maybe since then, maybe it's the one thing we don't talk about anymore. You know what I mean? The stuff gets shared, but we don't really chew the fat over it. There's so much other disciplines, around coaching that we end up talking about. I thought it'd be quite nice and actually a little bit novel to go back to the good old training session and kind of what it means for the people in the room that are doing it, day in, day out over a course of years. And I think all of us probably watch other sessions and kind of unpick them as well in our local environments or our clubs or at our kids clubs or whatever that might look like. So I think it's worth having a little circle around just sessions and about all the other bits and pieces, just the balls, bibs and cones part of what we do. And see if we can land on some good bits for the listeners.
Perfect. Brilliant, right? Okay. Well, look, as an overview then, for a first question, that's okay, and we'll go around each of you, just to really get an insight on what is a session to you. And I don't want to go into detail, we'll dig into that as we go through the podcast, but just as an overview, just broadly, what is a session and what kind of things are you thinking about when you're thinking about a session? So let's go Peter first, if that's okay, Peter. Just broadly, what when you're thinking about a session, what is it and what kind of stuff feeds into your thought processes?
I mean, I think I'll start with what a session is, because the actual thought process before we begin is, I think, a whole other rabbit hole. I mean, a really complex rabbit hole. And I'll briefly just touch on that with context. So the session needs to fit context of the participants, whatever that may be. Ben mentioned just now that he works across various scenarios, from academy sessions to the school session. Those are two very different contexts. So that's the first thing that will drive the content of the session and the structure of the session. And then it's not just a bunch of bits and pieces thrown in. They have to be connected in some way, and they will probably be driven by principles of play, driven by technical or tactical, or describe them a different way, game actions. And from there, you'll get your theme or topic, multiple parts that are connected together. There'll be a thread that runs through it. If there isn't a thread running through it, it's probably not a fully coherent session. It's just a bunch of stuff.
Okay. Yep. Perfect. Thanks, Peter. Brilliant. Okay. Fantastic. Craig, how would you kind of articulate what a session is to you from a broad perspective?
So I think, as Peter mentioned, you've got to see, like, what's your area that you're working with? Are you working with recreational players? Are you working with academy players? Are you working with a school, a program, a camp like Ben's on, for example? And I think you need to ask yourself then, do you need to be proactive or reactive? Like, for example, I have high school age players like U15 to U18 and adult, which we are more reactive. We look at a game, we see where the weaknesses are, we try to address those weaknesses. And then I have younger players like U12 and below, where we develop more like a school type curriculum where we're covering the same topic per week, trying to alternate whether it's the attacking side of the ball, the defending side of the ball, and so on. So I think it's about understanding what you want from the session first before you get down to the pen and the paper, the scribbles, and everything like that. Understanding where the players are and where we need to get them to go to.
Perfect. Thank you, Craig. All right, and finally, Ben, if that's okay, I appreciate it's hardly going third because I might cover some of the stuff already between Peter and Craig. But Ben, how would you kind of articulate how you, when you think about a session, what that is in your head, and before you actually put the detail around it?
I think for me, I think you've got to recognise when it's like a foundation phase or whether it's a YDP session or even a PDP session. So I think you've got to have some sort of syllabus behind you to have a plan to go for, because there's no point just going, oh, I know, like obviously in YDP you might go, or maybe PDP where you go, oh, we didn't do this well enough at the weekend against West Brom, whatever. You might work on that at training, and then maybe YDP might be working on, I don't know, a defensive high press or to force summit, but then in the foundation phase you're not really going to be working on that. So I think having a syllabus behind in regards to what phase you actually are to be able to go for. So if it is foundation phase, it's all going to be technical work, all going to be looking to get players better on their weaker foot or their passing detail or their finishing. And then when they're in the YDP, it might start going into maybe a bit of tactical side of things. So shape, where to press, when to press, and then when you go into your PDP, where your games actually mean something, like the Premier League 2 games or the under-18 games, something like that, where they actually mean 3 points, then I think you might then end up working on something that didn't go well in the previous game, maybe, so you can get players better at that side of thing. Because obviously, when you go into a first team, it's all about getting 3 points or getting into the next round of the cup, right? So they're going to work on things that they might not have done well. They're not going to have some sort of syllabus that they go by. They're going to go, well, we lost to Everton at the weekend because of free crosses. So they're going to work on defending crosses the next training session. So I think it does matter what phase you're in, but it also matters if the club or like the development centres have some sort of syllabus to go by, where you've got a topic, and then like you said, I think at the start, Ray, where I think it was you, Ray, where you said about going for something all the way through. So if it is passing detail, your first arrival activity is not going to potentially be dribbling, right? It's going to be something to do with passing and stuff like that. So you want to try and link your arrival activity to your ball mastery, to your attacking, to your possession, whatever it is. You want to try and link it all together, right? So the players have got an idea that if I dropped in on, say, one of your sessions, Scott, I can ask one of the players without even coming up to you going, oh, what are you working on today? And they go, it's passing detail, it's finishing, it's receiving to play forwards, whatever it is. The players will know and have that in their locker to go, yeah, we're doing this. And that's your job done as a coach in the session, right? Because the players know what they're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Ben. Okay. So obviously then, Ray, as a collective there, you spend a lot of time talking to lots of coaches and also doing your own bits and pieces as well. Between the guys there, have we covered everything from your side of things? Is there things there you would say need to be highlighted more or any gaps?
So what I really wanted to come out early today was probably something that guys have all said in different ways, and that's just that sessions, individual football sessions, need to connect to something else, something bigger. So if we kind of think about the sessions themselves as the micro part of what we do, like the smallest one hit of what we do, what are they all adding up to over time? So the guys have mentioned being age appropriate. So that would be something bigger. So you wouldn't do, I don't know, an 11v11 defending session with your under nines or something like that. You get the picture. And sometimes as well, you might not do the kiddie stuff, the kiddie game stuff with your YDP players. So connecting it to age appropriate long-term development. The guys have mentioned using curricula, which is just it's pretty much a given now. It would seem across the game that coaches have access to that sort of thing. Otherwise, I'll give you a little example. In my last job, we were working with players every day, so it was a residential football academy where they would train 6 out of the 7 days a week and sometimes twice. it would seem really bonkers for a player to go into that environment and for me just to do something random Monday, something random Tuesday, something random Wednesday. It needs to connect to a wider purpose and a bigger purpose. And that was really pleasing with what the guys said, because otherwise, I remember Roy Keane saying years ago, we something along the lines of, we never had a throwaway session. There was, even at the professional level of the game, there was a purpose to something, and if there wasn't, you could probably imagine his irk as just a bit of a time waster. So to me, once you have that in order, the macro, we'll say, then you can get into planning your micro in a certain type of way.
Perfect. Yeah, I totally agree, Ray. Oh, look, I know what listeners will be thinking right now. They'll be thinking, right, Scott, stop talking. Just ask the guys how they do a session. What does it look like? Now, bear in mind, you've contextualized that very well by saying that actually it's going to be age and stage appropriate, depending on all these other things there. So I get that. But just generally speaking, then, Craig, is it unfair of me to ask you, and if it's not, please answer it, what does a Craig session look like? Recognizing the fact that it may differentiate between, the players that you've got, but just generally speaking, have you got a set formula that you follow, for say a 90-minute coaching session, and if so, what would that look like? Or if not, how do you approach it? And we'll go around everyone, but we'll start with you, Craig, if that's okay first.
Yeah, so once I figured out like what my topic is going to be, whether it's based on the curriculum or it's based on the week's activity of what we feel we need to improve, I flip my sessions around and I start with the back. So I look at the actual game first. If I'm coaching 11v11 team, I look to see what would I want to see this topic appear in 11v11 game. So if I'm doing attacking in the final third, how does that look like once all 11 are on the field? So what I do is you probably can see, if you on YouTube, the board behind me where I use my whiteboard, moving all the magnets around to where I think the topic will occur and where I'll get the most benefits out of it. And then I'll start to, what I've always been taught is trying to use a magnifying glass to then start to slowly bring the picture into a smaller situation. So we start with the whole field, then we break it down into the individual unit, and then breaking it down into the individual. So that way, then you've gone from back to front, you flip it around, your individual will start your warm up. I think it was Peter said earlier about how there has to be a common thread going all the way through. So my warm up will be related to my technical practice. My technical practice will be my skill development. My skill development will be my phase of play. My phase of play will be my scrimmage, or scrimmage, an American term I use there, small-sided game. So just breaking it down step by step. So basically, when a player comes to the session, as like I think it was Ray that said that, just that they'll know as soon as we start doing a couple activities, oh, this is this. So I refer to it as, once we get to the game where it's just two teams, even amount of players, ball, two teams going in, and I go in and I coach 1 to 2 points within a natural environment to make sure they understand what it is. And I refer to that as my aha moment. So it's when the players go, oh, this is what the warm up looks like. This is what the technical practice looks like. Because I think one of the things we do as inexperienced coaches when we first start in is we have all these lovely sessions that look perfect with the cones placed in the right periods and everything like that. But the players don't understand how that relates to the game. So once you get that 1 or 2 moments in the game and they're like, wow, this looks like that triangle activity we did in the warm-up. So once you've got that, then I think you've got the players hooked, and you'll see improvements at the weekend.
Isn't that great, Craig, as well, that when you do go and watch your match and you see something that played out in training in a match, how good you feel as a coach? I remember the first time it happened to me, not under 607s, but we worked something and we saw it in a game. You just like, oh, well, training actually works when you do it right. But then I guess the flip side to that is how many times you say, and they're getting frustrated that actually, how we worked on this in our training session and we're not seeing it in the match. And, you can't work out why, but sometimes that's because it's too organised, it's too rigid, too structured, and football's a bit more chaotic than that. And it's getting that sweet spot right. Ben, same question for you, if that's okay then, if you don't mind. What's a Ben session look like?
I was going to say, I think I forgot what the question was.
So just again, not to be unfair, because I'm sure your sessions are different depending on who you're coaching, but just generally speaking, do you kind of have I definitely have a default format that I kind of use when I'm trying to put a session together, like how I start and how I finish and stuff. Do you have something similar, and how would that look
Yeah.
if I was one of your players?
So for me, when players arrive, I try and get them to do kick-ups because I think having touches of the football is brilliant. And the amount of times that you watch coaches get players with balls on the floor, and it then becomes players just standing with their foot on the ball, having a chat with their mates. But I try and get players to do kick-ups because I think having that control, having that understanding to not kick the ball so high, trying to keep the ball low. If it does go higher, how can we keep it up? What part of the foot we can use? Getting them to use like the inside of their foot, the outside of the foot, the ones that are finding the kick ups easy, but also set them challenges like what's your best kick up score, and they're like, oh, 50, right? In this 10-minute arrival, you've got to try and beat 50. So it's giving them that challenge, because it also gives them touches of the ball, especially at foundation phase, where I think I know I've harped on about it a little bit, but giving them that opportunity to just get touches of the ball, practicing with their right foot, their left foot, because in the end they will use their left foot, because they might get to 49 and it might go over to their left side if they're right-footed, and they'll kick it up and they'll be like, oh, I can kick it. So that'll be sort of something that I get my players to do, whether it's a camp or whether it's an academy session. It's kick-ups and just getting them on the ball. And then I think this has been said numerous times already so far, but having a link. So if we're looking to receive with our back to goal, what does that ball mastery look like? So it might be just 1v1s, just 1v1 in groups of like 3 or 4, trying to get the ball from one end to the other for like 30 seconds. All right, I'm going to try and receive it. And then a bit of drive-by coaching to help, rather than stopping the whole thing, and just a bit of drive-by coaching to, oh, can we do a little back foot feint, or can we look to go one way to then go the other, just individual. And then once let them go for like 5 minutes, and then sort of speak to them as a group after to see if anyone can answer the questions that I've said to them while they drive by. And so it gives them a sense of, oh, I do understand, but I've given them the answer, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then it all depends kind of what environment I'm in. So if I'm like a development center, it'll probably be like an attacking wave game, 3v3, 3v2s, stuff like that. And then looking to do like a possession practice or a small sided game where we try and get that out. Maybe if it's receiving back to goal. In the small sided game, it might be that there's an attacker 1v1 in the end box, like an end zone that they've got to try and hit first. So can they look to lend the ball? Can they look to spin to get a goal? Can they bring others into play? So then, as Craig said, we're bringing everything through into the small sided game at the end. So kind of that's how one of my practices will go. If it's like an attacking practice and it's 3v2, I'll get an attacker to be starting. They play the ball into the attacker to start. A defender then comes out, and then 2 come out to make it a 3v2 attacking practice, just to try and create a sense of, and I think it's been said as well, where it's that wow moment to go, that's why we did 1v1s at the start, so we can get this out, or can we use my body to disguise to get myself a goal, kind of thing. So I think out of all 5 of us, we would have probably the same thing, but maybe just done in different ways, using different words. And obviously when you're in a club, you've got to try and stick to their philosophy, their phrasing of what they say, because someone's transition might be someone's something else. So I couldn't think of a word then, but it would just be it'll be someone's terminology different to someone else's. But I think we're kind of all on the same playbook with combining a session and making the topic go through each, whether it's a ball mastery, whether it's a possession, whether it's an attacking, whether it's a small sided game. I like the fact Craig uses, I think it's play, hold, play, or I think that's the phrasing behind it, where you play a game first and you potentially could do drive. I've done that at times, depending on the situation, depending on what the development centre is or something like that. So it's always good to listen to other coaches, but also watch other coaches. I think all coaches are thieves out there. I think the best coaches are the best thieves, where they just steal sessions and steal phrases and steal techniques. So I think it's really good to listen to everyone and find out how they do, because I know I've I know I've taken some notes from this already, so it's brilliant to hear.
No, that's fine, Ben. Well, three things you mentioned there that I thought were great. Obviously, the nicking thick bits, I think, is it can be a very positive thing to do. I guess what we'd all say here, I'm sure we'd agree, is it's important you contextualize that, like you said at the beginning, for your environment, right? We don't be going and finding Man City, practices and then trying to put them in their under six sessions, but getting good stuff that you can then relate to your players, I think is brilliant. But you mentioned about layering, I think, really about building a session up and layering on stuff so it kind of makes sense, which I think is excellent. And I think something that's undervalued is that language, having that common terminology. So I'm conscious of the things that I say as a 50-year-old man what was playing football as a kid. The phrases we used when I was 9, 10, 11 aren't the same phrases the kids use now because of things like FIFA and stuff. So I've got to get on their wavelength for not using my words, my language. The boys don't understand that. They've got their own ways of using that, and I've got to make sure that I speak their language and not my language, because that can be a big miscommunication.
100%. And
Peter,
just getting on that language. Like I grew up in non-league, and some of the language that I heard in non-league, I can't.
You definitely can't use. Yeah.
I went into coaching in non-league, and it got to an okay standard. So it goes back to telling players what to do. Like, if I'm shouting at a player press in a non-league team, they're going to know how I want it. But it's now going, right, you need to curve your run. You need to stop the pass going there, block the passing lane. So and again, it goes back to what phase are they in? Foundation, YDP, PDP, and it's all about that terminology that we can use to help them understand the practice, because we can put the best practice on in the world. If the kids don't understand it, it then becomes the worst practice in the world, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Good point, Ben. Thank you. And Peter, then, if you don't mind, we've probably covered a fair bit, but I'm sure you've got your own interpretation of this. So if you don't mind, how you go about it.
Yeah, well, I'll hark back to my time as an FA tutor and say it depends. Nice classic answer, but it really does.
Yeah.
Like, context always, how old are they? What's their level? I coach across so many different age groups that really makes a difference. And then how long is the session? That also makes a big difference. I do some sessions at an hour, some are an hour and a half, some are 2 hours. So you've got to make different choices based on how long that is. And I don't think that I have a general structure that most of my sessions will look like because of the variety of age groups. But in general, I suppose what most people will use will be up the steps, what used to be technique, skill, game, a whole part whole, starting with a game, into some kind of practice, back into a game, and then perhaps a carousel approach, which is probably one of the least utilized and most underrated forms of practice that there is. So it generally will look like that. So my repetition is probably based on 3v3, and when I'm working with the younger groups of players, you will 100% see me using 3v3 practices or 3v3 plus practices with bounce players and that sort of thing. But if I was to generalize it, there will be an arrival activity, which most of the time with me is a game or small-sided games. If I'm working at the development center, we definitely do ball mastery after that. And I tend to follow my ball mastery with 1v1s, because that's a small bugbear of mine that if we are doing ball mastery, and by ball mastery, I mean ball manipulation as well. So some people will talk about ball mastery and say that the passing pattern is ball mastery. And yes, I suppose it can be, but just to avoid any confusion, I'm talking about ball manipulation. If you're doing ball manipulation, why aren't you then doing 1v1? Because they need to use it in context, or a form of practice that allows for 1v1s. So 1v1, then into a conditioned small-sided game, or depending again on the age group, some kind of overloaded, underloaded practice that will then be followed by a small-sided game. And if it's the older groups, we'll go into a larger numbered game. That, I suppose, is generally what a training session will look like for me. But then we can mix it up. So that whole part whole, one of the things that is quite possible to do is start with your game, use your carousel, go into the game again. So they practiced a number of different but connected skills in opposed, unopposed, semi-opposed, partially opposed, overloaded, and then gone back into the game. So experience different situations. So yeah, that you asked what a session might look like. That's one example. I can run off examples galore, but it just depends on. One thing I will say, I suppose, is if it is under sevens or under eights, it might just look like ball manipulation, 1v1, 3v3, 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 go home.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it was in some ways it's an unfair question. It's like you say, it's all about context. And we can't preach context. And I say to you, what is winning sessions like for everybody? Because that's not the way it works. But I think what we've got between all three of you is some common themes there. Do you think that's fair, Ray? And some things you've seen there, the common threads that are going through everyone's sessions that make it successful?
Absolutely. And I suppose what I want to add to what the guys have spoken about is something for people to think about. My coaching, I usually think about people talk about having a session topic. I probably have a weekly topic. And what that week's like obviously differs from coach to coach, depending on the level. Some coaches will only have one session, for example. Like I say, in my last job, it was every day. So what I wanted to do to use that every day as an example as well, rather than look at Monday as being one session where we coach something, we would coach it across the week. And we'd have that one side of the plan, and we would have the other side of the plan. We'd have what I simply used to call little and often. So our environment was about developing technically, tactically excellent players. So being technically, tactically excellent. So spending loads of time with the ball, possession games, ball mastery, high level technical work, that had to have a really robust part of our week always. So, for example, if we were coaching, for example, let's say we had a defending week let's say we were doing compact defending as a weekly topic. The warm up wasn't about defending, and even the next part wasn't about. It was split between this little and often, where we get loads of opportunities to be with the ball, to play under pressure. And then we would go with probably the second half of the session, we would then go into a curriculum topic. So instead of looking at one session as one thing, it was done across the week. And to kind of build on that, we would have essentially a tick box across the week. So have we taught the topic in its smallest form? All right. So if it's defending, that would be, you could have an unopposed, but let's say its smallest form is 1 versus 1, right? Can we have it in its biggest form, which would be 11v11 or something that looks like 11v11 or as close to it as possible, and then something in the middle, right? So a 6v6 type middle thing. So it was important that across the week we would have to tick those 3 things, and then we would have to tick off, well, have they used the defending as an example? Can they do it outnumbered? Can they do it disorganized? So can they do it, a little bit off center? And then the other tick boxes would be, well, did they have a ball mastery segment to a session? Did they have a rondo, for example, segment to the session, and stuff like that? So we spread that out all across the week, but still pulling it together around one topic, which I think is slightly different than what it's slightly different from what probably every FA education will tell you to do, because normally it's kind of one session, one topic. But we had a lot more room to maneuver than that. So we wanted to chunk it up across the week.
Yeah, love that, Ray. Okay, well, look, I've got a question I'm going to throw out to all of you, and anyone can jump in first if they want to, rather than going around. It's about fun. I still get blown away by how many sessions that I sometimes watch, and this is no disrespect, and people may watch mine and think the same thing, but the players don't look like they're always having fun. And then also when I speak to players in their session, how was that? Sometimes my own kids, they've gone to somewhere else. So how was it? And then, oh, it was a bit boring, Dad. It's like, well, what? And obviously kids are, they're a tough audience. So and they sort of go back the next week, so it couldn't have been that bad. But, I guess the question is to you guys, and feel free to jump in first if who wants to go first. How important is fun, or enjoyment for the players you're coaching? And if it's not, why not? And if it is, how do you go about trying to ensure that you kind of make it fun? Bearing in mind, I recognise that not every player's version of fun is the same, right? What some people enjoy, others don't. So how do we deal with that as coaches? Do we have to deal with it? And if so, how do you guys deal with it? Because I think that sometimes we do struggle with this. So feel free to jump in. Ben's got his hand up. Go on, Ben.
I'll go. I think fun is a massive part of it. And I think that goes from foundation phase to under sevens, eights, whatever it is, all the way through to first team. I think it's got to be fun at some point. You see like Mourinho and Arteta and stuff like that. I think Arteta in the news earlier this week is like having players with balancing a ball on their head. So it's got to be fun at some point. We're all human beings, right? And at the end of the day, if it's not fun, it's just going to become boring. It's going to become the same thing every single time. If you bring a bit of fun into it, if you start a session with a tennis net or cones in a line and it becomes like a tennisy thing, as long as you've got a reasoning behind the fun, rather than it being right, we're just going to smash footballs at a goalkeeper for 10 minutes just as an arrival, and then your session's on defending outnumbered, that's going to be pointless. As long as there's a reasoning behind the fun, there has to be some fun in it. Like I said, whether you're in YDP, whether you're in PDP, whether you're in the first team foundation, whatever it is, there has to be fun. Now me, I'm loud and I'm always loud, and I think my ADHD comes through 9 times out of 10 in a session. Parents say to me that they hear me over the other side of the pitch and they're watching their son on the other corner, and I'm like, that's just me. I don't put it on, because kids will know if you're putting something on. Kids are intelligent human beings, and
honest, right? They tell you, don't they? You know, even in language or body language, you know if it's working or not.
100%. And if I turn up a session where I might be a little bit tired, they'll be like, "Ben, you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just getting into it. It's fine. Don't worry." Like I'm always loud. Like you'll hear me over any other coach, and I'm fun. I'm loud. If someone does something outrageous like rainbow flicks or something like that, I'm like, whoa, jumping around and stuff like that. So, and this is me at academy level as well. It's not as if I'm like holiday camps, I'm smashing footballs at goals and I'm just having all sorts of fun on there. So, for me, I think the coach brings the session in. If the coach is not fun and they're just quiet, that's why a session is going to be boring. So you could even have a really, really fun activity at the start. If the coach is not on it and he's not maybe even getting involved, like a little bit of head tennis or something like that, and the coach is like bang diving headers and stuff, the kids are just going to be like, well, this is just, I might as well go to a holiday camp or something. Like it is quite boring. But I think an element of fun, obviously you've got the kids have got to know when the seriousness does come in, where you're working on the technique and you're trying to coach and stuff like that. But I think once you have that buy-in from the players that you're that type of coach, that they know when to have fun, when to be serious, I think you've got a buy-in and they'll run through walls for you. I can see Ray with his hand up, so I'm going to let him have a chat.
So I'm just like, this was to go back around the room. Like, what have we done as a coaching fraternity to make football not fun? Do you know that? Do you understand the question? Like, if we flip the question around, like it's crazy to think that we could even potentially turn the most popular game in the world into something. Ben used about warning against boring sessions, stuff like that. Like, what have we done? Do you know what I mean? To kids to lessen that, and
do you know what?
That's not necessarily back to you, Ben, but it does make you wonder.
Do you know what I think it potentially could be? I think it's all these coaches out there that are coaching an under sevens team and under eights team that see Pep do what he's doing, see Klopp doing what he's doing, and they're like, "We'll get our team playing like that." Well, not really. And I think it's really good that the 3v3 is coming in, because it's going to stop teams doing that. It's going to stop the younger groups like your sevens, eights, nines you're going to stop them getting to go, well, at some point, if a goalie's got the ball and there's a player up the pitch 1v1, kick the ball to him because he's going to have more chance of scoring. There's no point, like, we play against like your likes of Arsenal and Tottenham and stuff like that, and they press high, right? They're going to press high. Whatever level they're, whatever age group they're playing at, they're going to press high. So why not just go over? Like, and I think coaches have gone away, and I know we're talking about the fun side of things, but there's still got to be a point where football's football, right? Like back in the 90s when I watched football, there wasn't none of this ticky-taka stuff. You had Wimbledon smashing it long up front to John Fashanu and stuff like that. Like, that's football. You need to recognise when to play through, when to play round, or when to play over. And I think coaches, and it goes back to your point, Ray, where you're saying, why is football becoming boring? Is because coaches want the ball to be pass. But and I go back to my point, there's got to be a reasoning behind it, right? Why do we build out from the back? Well, to score goals. That's why we build out for the back. It's not to look pretty and it's not to look like we can make 100 passes. It's to score a goal. So if we can do it in 2 passes and get the ball to our forward and score, that's a goal. That's fun. If we're trying to just move the ball quickly for no reason whatsoever and it's just pass, eventually you're going to lose the ball and it becomes boring for your players because every time they pass the ball, they're going to lose it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to bring Peter in on this because Pete, we alluded to this in a little Twitter thing last night. But before we do, like, I do want coaches to understand what fun means necessarily and what enjoyment. I prefer probably enjoyment and engaging rather than fun because fun could be just smashing balls at a keeper for half an hour, or fun could be whatever that the context would be. I remember speaking to a friend of mine who liked to run marathons, and I never got it. I never got it because it was never in my locker. But he enjoyed it in a completely different way than you wouldn't think it fun, obviously. But he got a huge amount of satisfaction from it. So I think engaging football sessions with the game at its core, that's what we're looking for, as opposed to whatever, everyone laughing and joking that like the substitute teachers in for the day kind of fun. But Peter, last night I put a post up. It might have been on Craig's post, to be fair, around the whole idea of game realism, and I said something along the lines of, if it's not realistic, what are we doing? And Pete said about it being fun. So what's your angle on all this then, Pete?
I mean, I could go on a multi-part rant here about why football isn't fun here, but so what I referred to there, or what I was referring to there, it not relating to the game but still being fun would be something like a warm-up or introduction activity, such as what was popular for a while, noughts and crosses, or 4 in a row, connect 4. It's not really game related, not really. It's a stretch to call that game related, but it is fun and it is engaging and it gets the brain ticking over. There's been various activities like that, like people trying to chip balls into bins or hitting footballs against Swiss balls to try and get them to move. There is some crossover into technique and things, but mainly it's a fun activity to get people engaged and going in the session. But it's not the whole of the session. I think that's really important. If that's the only fun bit and the rest of it is stop, stand still, then there's no point. It might as well just be stop, stand still. And when we talk about why it's not fun, loads of things going through my head. What are we doing to make it not fun? And there's a lot of talk about gamification, and it's always confused me. Why do we need to gamify something that's already a game? And I've never really understood that. It's a game already. So what are we doing? It's a great question. What are we doing where it's not fun? And I think it's where it's become more like teaching and education. There's become this element of it being that the coaches And then we'll say, we're not teachers. But some will say, what's the difference? Well, teaching is really different, right? And if we treat it like a classroom, or like we remember a classroom being, and what the kids remember a classroom being, I think we suck all the air out of it. We suck all the air, all the enjoyment, all the engagement out of the game. We have them going from one classroom into another, and you just taking them out. You're taking them out straight away because they've come to play, to have fun, to engage, to get enjoy, not to go have the same sort of person that you spent all day with again. I think that's one of the big things I think has stopped it being fun.
Yeah. That's a good point, Peter. I just I want Craig to speak. That's okay, Craig. But just quickly on that one about the teaching thing, I wonder if my background is education, so I've seen how the classroom's evolved over years, and it's got better in schools. But I think sometimes the coaches think they have to be like a teacher, and their teacher environment is very much about right. The teacher was at the front talking and giving all the information,
Yeah,
and most schools these days that's very much not the case, especially the better schools. I think where it's very much more the students get involved in stuff, and I don't think they're doing it intentionally, but I think a lot of coaches just think it's got to be not about me necessarily, but I've got to be the font of all knowledge and I've got to pass it on to you guys and you have to listen and learn it. And that's not fun for most people,
no,
we don't want to learn
it's
that way, do
it's
we?
that thing that happens in coaching as well. When people start as a coach, especially if they've been a volunteer, they revert to what how they were coached, how they were taught,
Yeah,
which is why you
yeah,
see so many of these people standing in lines. And
Mhm.
yeah,
I've been in the classroom and I've been teaching, and I've done teaching courses where they try and show you guys, it's not about you standing up there. It's about them doing activities to make it all more get more stickability and so on. But if you haven't done that, you revert to what you remember,
yeah. 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 And it's like Ben said, I think
what you
about kind of with
think
that
it is.
imposter syndrome where you act a way, don't you? You just kind of almost put on, oh, that's what I think I should be doing. So I kind of act a certain way to see, that's my, it's almost like a safety blanket. But go on, Craig, you've been very patient, mate, waiting there. I'm sure you've got a few things to add to this. So on the subjects of fun, then what's your take on it?
Yeah, for me, I think a lot of coaches consider the word fun a dirty word. It's as if they shouldn't do it because, and I think the base of it is the fact that we take our profession very seriously and we want other people to do that too. We want everyone to see that we have improved these players. I remember once when I did a coach evaluation of a coach, and I told him in when speaking to him one on one that you need to have more fun with the players, and he snapped back at me. He goes, "But I'm not a clown like that," and I think that's where it comes down to. You don't have to be the clown for the kids to have fun. It just needs to be a environment first and show your personality as a coach. Like I always make sure I get to a practice at least 30 minutes before it's meant to start because I want to be completely set up when the kids arrive. So when the kids arrive, I ask them how their day was, ask them how they are. I get a one-on-one feeling for them. So it's not that teacher-student relationship. It's that we're on the team together, we're in this together, and so on. I get personal with them. I know what their mum and dad's name is. I know like details about their lives. The older ones, I know what their girlfriends' names are and so on, and all these sort of things. I just get to know the player. And then when you do your session, you can get so much fun out of it just by your approach to the activity. Like we've done thousands, probably millions of rondos between the five of us, like all year long. But you can make that fun the way you react if a player gets megged and all the kids are jumping on top of each other and like celebrating the fact these sort of things are fun. And even though it's still a competitive environment, they're enjoying themselves. It's not like we have to take a break and do something silly. Like guys mentioned head tennis, you know what I mean? Like the noughts and crosses game, all these sort of things you can do that you can add to the beginning of your session to create that right mind. Because as Peter said, these kids come from a structured classroom session. When they get there, give them a bit of freedom in the beginning, give them a little bit of flexibility, give them a bit of encouragement, and that would be the fun rather than it being a clown.
You know what, Scott? I think we've landed on a bit of a potential sweet spot here in our coaching sessions, whereby we can make whatever activity is going on in front of us, be it a rondo, a game, a ball mastery session, whatever it happens to be, there's a sweet spot here between it being developmental and enjoyable, right? Because if you can play head tennis and you can scream at everyone who gets megs in the rondo and all that, or for example, you set up a game and you go. I used to do a 100 pass game, so I'd have two injured players count, one for the red team, one for the blue team. First team to 100 passes, and nobody's laughing and jumping around and high fiving necessarily, but they're all in it. You know what I mean? And every pass counts. And so I think from my point of view, a lot of us in the room, we post and we've written and we've done loads of stuff around player development. What if coaches focused on that sweet spot between players developing and players enjoying? So you don't have to ring fence fun. You know what I mean? And you don't have to ring fence the game that does the serious stuff. That it's all part of it, because we make it so engaging, and probably we make it engaging. Take the cues away. Maybe take the line drills out where you're just standing on, passing from cone to cone. That sort of stuff that may be killing it a little bit, and just going, right, I'm going to make this competitive. I'm going to make it enjoyable. Would I like to play in it myself? Run those few acid tests. And suddenly
Is
then
that Ray where we can add in things like scoring and maybe conditions and constraints in a fun way? Is that what we're saying about here? One way to bring it to life is because, like you say, even the kick up thing you said, start with kick ups. Right? If you say, well, I do a similar thing, I think what Ben was saying, but it'll be like first one to do 20, and they'll get 20 quite quickly, and now 20 with a header. So you straight away now you've added a little bit of something to it. So rather than just kick ups now, you put something in it, a target or something. Is this ways in which we can make these sessions fun, and is it worth doing that?
And when you think about using conditions, constraints, whatever word you want to call it, or progressions and all that stuff that's been in our vocabulary as coaches for a long, long time, we do that just to refresh things, don't we? Just at times, just to keep things fresh, to keep them challenging. There's nothing brings a game to life than when you go, you look at your watch, you go, there's 5 minutes left, you go, right, first team to 2 wins. And off, do you know what I mean? And any kind of air that might have gone out of the session is suddenly re-injected back in. Or we're going to play 3 5-minute games, winner stays on, whatever it might be. And it's not our first thought when we think of fun is we think of the hooting and the hollering and the all that sort of stuff. Whereas this it's engagement, it's enjoyment, and it might annoy players at times because they'll lose or they're at their competitive edge. So it's not necessarily laughs and smiles you're seeing, but you're seeing competitiveness and enjoyment from completing a task well, or trying to complete a task well. And I think if we back that up, I'm all about, like I said right at the beginning, connecting it to the bigger thing. Like if we could back up that environment, session in, session out, where players are competing and enjoying competing, playing with the ball, I think we aggregate over time to better footballers.
Yeah. I think it might have been Peter said this, but the danger is not crowbarring like a fun part to the session. It shouldn't be like, okay, this is the fun part now, guys. We're going to do 10 minutes having a fun thing, and the rest is going to be like boring and dry. So actually, how do we make it, back to your point, Ray? Everything should be fun, shouldn't it? It should have an element of fun. And I guess the question to that is why, and I think we all agree that it's because the more engaged the player is in the session, the more they're going to develop and get better, right? They're going to apply themselves harder, they're going to work harder, they're going to be focused more. So it's not fun for no reason, is it? It's not fun just to feel good. There's actually a real benefit to getting players engaged through whether it's enjoyment or fun or whatever else. I want to move on because I know we're pushed for time, so I want to, if that's okay, the next question. But anything else on fun that I've not asked or you're itching to say before I go? We've got a big group here. Anything to add? Have we covered it? Okay.
I was just going to add that maybe we talk about flow state.
Please. Yep.
A lot of people will touch on and talk about flow, but we talk about it, and it is the idea of a sweet spot where they are fully locked in and engaged, and everything is on automatic. The coach doesn't really need to say anything. And I think fun and engagement, we're going to keep using this word engagement, will really help to find that moment of flow And that's really what we're going for. That flow state is almost coaching utopia.
Yeah, isn't it a great feeling when you run a session and you get in that sweet spot anyway? It's happening. The learning's taking place. The players are loving it. The intensity's there. You can see the gate. It's really nice when you get there. It doesn't always happen, does it? But and also when it doesn't happen, that's okay too, right? Just reflect, learn, and make the changes for next time because they won't always be that way. All right. Well, look, if it's okay, my next questions, which again I'm thinking like a listener, I think, or from my point of view anyway, to ask you guys what I'd want to know. One of the challenges that I face when coaching is how do I coach a group and the individual? How do I approach that? Like, how do I get a session around the thing? We've got the thing, we've got our structure, we're making sure some fun's in it, but how do I manage to get the both right? And I think my problem is I coach a lot of the group and I'm not so much good at getting to the individual. So just some tips, what's your view on that broadly? And then like any tips or ideas on how you might go about it or recommend how I might go about improving my ability to coach groups and individuals. And I'll throw it open to the floor again. So feel free just to jump in.
I'll go first.
Thanks,
Just the
Craig.
fact that, yeah, no problem. As I mentioned earlier, when I'm doing my session, I think of the team, the unit, the individual. So, and I start with the individual as part of the warm up, build into a unit, build into the game at the end. So it keeps as realistic as possible. And I think one of the rabbit holes coaches do fall in is the fact that when an activity is going on, the fact that they have to have their sole attention on that activity. If you find a player is struggling, there's nothing wrong with pulling that player out and working with them individually if the other group is organized. And all I would suggest to a coach is if you're going to do that, pull a player out, address them, work on it individually, talk to them, but keep your body shape to the big field. So you're seeing what everyone else is doing while you're working with that individual. I find it very beneficial to get that kind of relationship as well, like I mentioned earlier, one-on-one with a player, but also you get that opportunity to work individually with them. And it does happen with guys, don't get me wrong, but especially with girls, if you stop the session to address that one player with something she keeps doing wrong, she will retract into herself and will not pay attention because they don't want to be the focus of attention. Some of the guys love it. You know what I mean? You know what it's like. Like if he scores like 10 goals, he wants everyone to know I'm the man. That's why, from my experience, you don't get many females that are prolific goal scorers because they just want to drift into the pack. So pull a player aside, address them individually while everyone's going on. You'll create a better relationship with them personally, and you'll be able to get some opportunity to improve them technically and tactically as an individual.
And Craig, do you find it's okay pulling a player out? I guess it's the way you go about it. That's probably again that's the craft of coaching, right? You do it in a way that's constructive. But is there a danger if it's not handled right that actually that player can feel almost like they're being like you said with the girls? But I'm sure boys, if they're being pulled out and it's not dealt with in the right way, is there a danger that could be counterproductive?
Absolutely. You got to do it at the right moment because I've done it at time. Well, I've done it a lot where players are like their front foot is just going, okay, coach, can I go back in? Can I go back in?
Watching the
Especially
game, yeah,
exactly if
yeah.
they're trying to get into the actual game. So you got to understand the individual, understand which activity it is. If they're playing a game at the end and it's really competitive, it's 1-1 and the next goal wins, they're not going to get your attention then if you pull them off and try and coach them. So you got to pick the right moment. But I think, and also don't do the same player over and over again because now it is going to have that reverse aspect to it where they're just like, oh, coach, I'm never good enough for coach. I try my best and pulls me aside. He keeps telling me to ankle lock my foot and I know I'm not doing it anyway. Which obviously as coaches we find frustrating when we tell them time and time again and the mistakes keep happening. But yeah, I think it's very beneficial, but 100% agree there, Scott. You've got to pick your moments, pick your battles of when to do that.
And not the first mistake, right? Don't go in too early. Let's see if it's repeating itself. And I see it sometimes the coach gone and the kids, there might be 3 or 4 mistakes, but that kid's made just one and they've gone straight in because that's for the coach, is the fourth mistake. They're not thinking it's that kid's first mistake and, and they're going quite heavy handed. So I guess it's just picking your moments and having, and keeping the engagement right. But of course, so I've jumped in. Peter, Ben, anything to add around kind of that side of things?
Yeah, I try and like Craig said, I think Craig made a really good point about pulling them out at the right time. I think if you do it too late, the kid's going to forget what what happened, what moment they're in. They might have done something wrong. You've gone to pull them out, and then they scored a worldie. They're not going to think about what they've done wrong. All they're going to think about is the worldie. So I think it's having that understanding to pull them out at the right time, but also just that little bit of drive-by coaching that someone else might hear as well. So like, and I think Scott, you said it where we don't just want to jump on them straight away. If they make it 2 or 3 times, then it might be right. Let's get them out. Let's do this. But if you see it a number of players doing it wrong, I think that gives you a license to stop the practice and say that you've seen this a few times from others. But I think making a point, and I think Craig made a point of it. I don't really get to coach girls much, so making a point of not saying it like, "Oh, little Johnny, you keep doing this wrong," and I've seen it from others. Then you're kind of pointing it at him instead of going, look, I've seen a few of you doing this. Can we look to maybe receive it this way or pass it that way or look to kick the centre of the ball with the centre of your foot? Whatever it is, it's just not making a point of pointing out one. Even if it is the one, kids won't realise that you're not talking about them. So you can actually sort of tell a little white lie and say, look, I've seen a few of you doing this, just so you're not jumping on one kid, because that might be something that they might need to work on. So it's just having that understanding to not kill a kid's confidence or kill a player's confidence, really, because like at the end of the day, and I think I said this at the start, they're all people and they've got feelings, and we all make mistakes, right? Us as adults, and we still all make mistakes. If we're still making mistakes, imagine what kids are doing if they're still learning. So I think we've got to take the person into consideration first, so we can get to know them. And some players, like, and I'll go on, like, say, first team and stuff. Some players might like a telling off, like a real having a go at, but some players might need an arm round that you might go like a little drive by so no one hears. So it's understanding that person, and I think that's where building those relationships counts, because you get to know the player. And Craig said this at this when he's like a rival, getting to know the player. What team do they support? Oh, how'd your team get on? And just having that understanding to go, all right, I can have a go at him because he or she can take it, but I might not be able to have a go at this one because it might affect their performance. So it's just having that buy-in to understand that. And like at the end of the day, these if we are all coaching kids, they've been at school all day, so the information that they've got in their heads at the moment is like maths, English, science, food tech, whatever it is, and then they're coming to get more of us. So it's just understanding, like, and I think Scott, you said it, the right time to jump in. They might have had all this information, and the one thing that you want them to know doesn't go in because of all the information that they have, and we say that their heads are like sponges, but their brains are still developing, right? So we've got to understand that, and we've got to go, okay, I'm, I'll see if he can correct that at some point, and if he can't, might just be a little chat at the end of the session, maybe, so you don't overload him, and for him to something to go away with home and going, oh, maybe I could just go home and play with a ball on a wall, kind of thing, to practice my passing, whatever it is. And that could be his development, like at the end, because he might have forgot it by the time he gets to the end of the session, but you want him to really take home that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant, Ben. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Peter?
I think it's worth saying. I think that some of this is assuming that we're coaching on our own. I think, and it's worth pointing out because if we're fortunate enough to not be working on our own, we can literally say to our partner, your job is to work on the individuals while I run the whole session. So if we are lucky enough to be in that situation, then things become a heck of a lot easier. Most grassroots coaches won't be, and even a lot of academy coaches and development center coaches won't be. I know that because I'm okay at what I do, a lot of the time I don't get an assistant or any assistants. So that's one of the things that happens. So, if you do have someone with you, brilliant. But I want to try and think about some techniques that we might use to make sure we're working around the individual and helping the individual, rather than what it might look like. So one of the things that I did on my youth award, if anyone remembers those, youth award, I used to write the player's name down, write the four corners across the top, and then I'd write a little bit of information inside next to the name. How did it impact that player in the corners? And I try and pick out half a dozen players or so, especially if, say, it was defending crosses, I pick the defenders, centre backs and full backs, for example. So that's one method that you might choose to use. And then one I often use alongside the 3v3s with the younger players is I'll literally have a whiteboard and I'll just write, how can I help you today? And again, they can write down their name and they can write something that they feel they need help with. And if there's nothing, okay, we might leave it for that week, or I might try and coach something out of them. But if they've written something down and I try and address it, it's got a lot of benefits. One of the big ones being they feel like they've been listened to. You know, I'm not telling them you must be doing this. I'm actually saying to them, yeah, I want to hear what you think, and I'm going to try and help you. Not I'm going to turn you into this or make you do this. I'm going to try and see how I can help you. And if today is shooting, then I'll try and find a way to help you with your shooting. But I also then need to try and remember, because if they come back next week and they still want to do shooting, I then make a choice of, okay, let's continue. Or I say to them, well, we did shooting last time. Maybe try and think about something else. So it doesn't become 6 weeks of them saying, I want to work on my shooting.
Yeah.
Brilliant. But let's try and round you up a bit as a player.
Well, that's going back to the point about getting that engagement, making it fun, right? If they feel like they're making a contribution to what they get out of the session, that's got to be better for them, right? Because it's not the Peter session. It's about me, and I can have my part to that as well. Just quickly, we'll come to Ray in a second, but just you made me think something, Peter. What about individual challenges? Do you guys use that? Would you give your players individual challenges? So say you're working on something, maybe a finishing practice, but they need a defender there, so you might give your defender a challenge. Can I block 4 shots, or can the attacker get 6 goals? I mean, is that something that you would be using in your sessions, or is it?
Yeah, well, if they've asked for help on something, that is a challenge. So we need to shape it together. Like, okay, saying I want to work on my shooting. What about your shooting?
Yeah.
What is it? Oh, I keep hitting the ball over. All right, let's try and work on getting 4 shots low and across the goalkeeper. Yeah. I don't like to number them. I just picked a number, but I don't like to put a number on it because you're setting a target.
How many could you
very
get then?
Specific target
how many, but making it a challenge and making that giving it a scoring thing attached to it can keep it fun, right? So let's say how many we can get in next. We've got a 5-minute practice now. How many shots can you get on target in the next 5 minutes? Let's go from there, and then remember that for next time. Then you can maybe build on it if you do it again next session, or the next session you do shooting again. What was your number last time? I got 10. All right, let's try and get more than that then. And it's a constant thing. Ray, what's your take on that?
It's quite funny that we're sort of ending. It kind of feels a little bit full circle from what we started talking about connecting ideas to the biggest version of them. So if you think of individual development, you can think of it as me coaching a player on the side of the pitch, on a pitch, drive by, whatever that looks like. The bigger version of it is, well, maybe in the background, coaches have IDP processes for their players. So we kind of, and sometimes when I say IDP, that kind of grows arms and legs and becomes a bit of a monster. But if every player in your group, midway through the season has areas where you and they know they should improve, areas they and where they're already strong. And if that's front and center of every session. So every time you play a training game, part of my IDP, for example, is a technical thing around my dribbling. So I can, without the coach kind of leaning over my shoulder, I can take control of that, and I can, drive up at the defender when I'm in 1v1 situations, or someone else that has a tactical IDP. So if we have that's kind of sitting over all of our sessions, then every session becomes an individual development session as well, if that makes sense. So long as the game is involved and the randomness that football brings. Yeah. We used to do a little bit like Pete said. We used to do we would have a game, whatever that might be, an 8v8, where next to your name, Scott, would be something from your IDP. So for example, your dribbling, your 1v1 defending, your recovery runs, whatever that might be. And instead of having one condition on the game, effectively the 8v8 had 16 conditions. So the keeper had to, I don't know, distribute short or talk more or whatever it might be. And what we find was that it takes on a life of its own. And you can do your group coaching, you can do your unit coaching. And all the while, if you have a decent, even a half decent IDP in place, that can be going on throughout.
Very clever. Love that, Ray. Brilliant. Well, I know we're pushed for time, guys, so I've got one more final question, which I think should be hopefully short and sweet, and also time to factor to the end of the podcast. I think an important part of a session is how you finish the session in the end, and I mean the very end, the last maybe 2-3 minutes. Like, so maybe the cones are gone away and the balls are in the bag, I don't know. But how do you guys finish your session off, and why do you take that approach? And we'll go with you first, Craig, if that's okay.
Yeah, I try to finish wherever possible on a positive note in relation to the session. So if we're getting towards the end of the practice and the topic was crossing and finishing and someone scores from a cross, that's the ideal time for me. Like, let's clear it up. Let's bring them in. Let's do a quick Q&A. Get the idea of did they understand the session? I go back and forth sometimes where I'll bring the group in and I'll tell them the objective of the session when we start. Just so they get in the right frame of mind. And sometimes, I think Ben alluded to it earlier, that sometimes I like to just not say anything and then at the end see if they figured it out. If like 90 minutes that they say, turn to me and they say we worked on dribbling and it was crossing and finishing, then I know my session has completely gone out the water. So I do like having that opportunity to talk to them. And when I finish on a positive, get the information, see what happens. And then I like to, and this is just from a personal point of view, I like to do a quick video voice note in the car on the drive on the way home where I'll self-evaluate then my own session. So when it comes to the next time, what were the strengths, what were the weaknesses, where did it go right, where did it go wrong? Because you can do the same session 100 times and 60% of the time it works great, 40 times the kids didn't get it. It does depend on the group that you're with.
Love that. Thanks, Craig. Ben, how do you go about finishing your sessions off when they, at the end? What's the last 3 minutes like for you?
I think it's Q&A. I like Q&As, and I think it goes back to Craig's point about if they can give you the right answers, your questions, I think you've had a decent session. If, for instance, they look at you with this confused look in their eyes, you're like, oh damn, I've kind of not hit the notes. But yeah, I love doing a Q&A at the end just to see how their understanding is, and if I need to. It also helps me understand, have I made the session a bit too tough for them? So a little Q&A, but also just recap on some good things individually. So like little Johnny might have we might be working on receiving back to goal, I'll use that, and he might have sort of dropped a shoulder and gone the other way and sent a defender for a hot dog, and I might say that to him in that way, and you see the smile on their face when you go, oh yeah, you've sent little Steve to the shop to get a hot dog, and they buzz about it, but it also lodges that learning in their brain. And it's again, we go, and I think Ray said it brilliantly, we go full circle. We're making it fun even at the end of the practice, where we're saying it in our own word, where they're like, yeah, I did do that, or I'll be like, oh, little Kevin, did you get beaten easily by little Jimmy? And then it has a little bit of banter between the group, and it just leaves it on a higher where while they're putting stuff away or sort of in the group, where and again it goes back to, do I know the individual? Can I say that to him? I might not be able to say it to him, but I could say it to him to have a little bit of fun within the group. And I don't think anyone wants to end the session on a negative. So I think on a positive, where it's still fun, it's still getting the players to engage, but it's also knowing, like Craig said, that they understand the session, because I think it's pointless us as coaches coaching if a player can't understand the session. There's no point reinventing the wheel if 1v1s work, right? Or there's no point in reinventing the wheel if you do a whole part whole, because players understand the game, and that's it. It's 7v7, 9v9, 11v11, whatever it is, against each other to see who can score the most goals to win the game. And I think if we try and make it as confusing as ever, players are not going to get sessions, and they're not going to get the topics, and they're not going to improve and develop as players.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Ben. Peter?
Quite interesting. So I'm just sort of reflecting a little bit as we're talking here and I'm listening. And Q&A is coming up a lot. And it's what I do as well. I use Q&A, see what they've learned, who's done it, to try and get information back out of them to tell me. And I'm thinking I'm just creating the classroom again though. And this is what I'm doing. And we've talked about fun. Can we make that more fun? And something has occurred to me that I remember from a coaching course where they did this plenary style with us, but they did it with a ball, and they threw the ball to us. And I think we actually did it as a team. So it was one player from each team, one versus one. Say something from the session, and if you say it, you can throw the ball back and you keep going. If you don't say anything, you're out. Next person's in. To be engaged and more fun. And it's making me think that I know this method. I've just described it. This is what I should use. It's a form of Q&A in a way, but it's less like the classroom. We just talked about it being fun and engaging and different to the classroom. And I'm sitting here going, well, I do Q&A. I ask questions and I wait. I use the pause, bounce, pounce techniques of the classroom. I'm like, that's not what I should be doing. I should be thinking away from that and using a different method to try and make the end just as engaging as the beginning.
Love that, Peter. Well, it's a great observation because absolutely we spoke about that, and then the last little bit maybe, even though we're doing the right things by reviewing this, reflects back on the session and getting the questions out and stuff like that. And it probably works, but can it work better? Can it work even more fun and in a more engaging way? And just throwing a ball in there, throwing it around is a great way of just getting that. Making it feel not like a classroom and more like a really good, enjoyable coaching session. Ray, what's your thoughts on that? On how we end sessions?
There's a human nature rule. I don't know if rule is the right word. They call it the peak end rule, but I think it's got a snazzier formal title as well. But that's the idea anyway. That's people remember, and people now. I'm not just talking kids. You remember the best, the worst, and what happens at the end. And that could be your family holiday. You know what I mean? The best moment or the worst moment if your room was whatever, and then the end. And I often think that bad coaching sessions are let off the hook because we play a game at the end. And I think some coaches are lucky because of that. And I'm not trying to be a sort of confrontational late on in this. But with that idea in mind, having sessions whereby coaches are chasing peaks for players, chasing good moments for players as a group. So my session will always end like the last thing that will happen with the ball will probably be the winning goal or the countdown or something that's got them right to the edge of it. And then secondly, sort of when the ball rolling is done, Dan Abrahams dropped in on a webinar probably 5 years ago now. He said, never underestimate the last 2 minutes. And that last 2 minutes can be a bundle of things that the guys have already spoke about. It could be that quick chat with a kid, that quick chat with a parent. He recommended once, everyone put a score out of 10. What was your commitment score tonight? What was your work rate score tonight? What was your communication score tonight? Whatever might be within your syllabus and stuff like that. Get a quick sort of touch on that before you go, because those moments can be really powerful.
I always ask the players in to give ourselves a team as a score out of 10 for the session, how well we did, and then ask them to highlight any individuals they thought did really well and why. I think it's always a nice way to finish. But yeah, you can't underestimate the way we finish session off. And even if you feel a bit flat sometimes, it's important that the players don't sense that. If you feel, I didn't quite go how I wanted it to go, still, get that positivity out there. And if it wasn't a 10 out of 10 session, it often isn't. If the boys say it's 7 or an 8, okay, why? What was great about it and what could do better next week? All right, that's brilliant. Let's go from that. Guys, I'm so grateful for your time. We tried to pitch for an hour, and as always with these podcasts, they go on way longer than they should do. But if it's okay, we'll finish up with just this one thing. We'll go around each of you, and then any final thoughts in case I've not asked you something or something that you want to get out. So feel free to say that if there's something else. But also, if you don't mind, maybe just saying about if listeners want to find out and contact you directly, either through, I don't know, Twitter or or X, I should say, or any the best way maybe to reach out to you guys or see what you're up to, and any final thoughts, and we'll just whiz round. So, Craig, anything I've not asked you or you want to share, and any contact details.
Honestly, I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I love these sort of things. I don't have an ego where I feel like I know it all, far from it. I've learned loads from today, as well as hopefully I've been able to give a few points myself for you guys and obviously the listeners. Love to hear more and do this again. So thanks for having us on. As I said before, I run a YouTube channel called Session Share where we share session plans and exercises on a daily basis. Look us up there, and you're welcome to visit me on X, is where I use most of my work, at Craig Birtwistle, and at Session Share Net. So look forward to having more conversations on there.
Awesome. Thank you, Craig. You've been a star. Really appreciate your contribution to this podcast. We'll make sure we put those links in the show notes so people can find it nice and easy. Okay. Thank you so much. Peter, you've
Just
always
gonna
got a
echo,
final thought, surely.
great chat. I'm not going to chuck any more in there. We've had loads, and it's lots for people to digest. It's just, I think there isn't a set way. I guess I'm going to have a final thought. There isn't a set way. It might help you as a beginner coach to have a go-to method and then play around with it from there. But find whatever works for you and the players. So yeah, great chat. Thank you so much for having me on. If people want to find me, I'm on various social media platforms. The Bearded Coach is normally a good way to find me. Main stuff is on X, but there's a YouTube, there's a Substack, so on, so and so forth. But yeah, thank you very much.
Brilliant, Peter. Thanks. As always, mate, you're a star. You always speak honestly and you speak with passion, and it's always a privilege to have you on the podcast, mate. Thank you so much. I hope I'm writing about that next book that's coming out soon. If it is coming out soon, it's very timely. And will you come and chat about it at some point?
Well, hopefully it's out soon. I haven't finished it. Yeah, but
No pressure.
The aim is to have something out there to help coaches who are starting on their 3v3 journey.
Okay.
With all the changes coming for the 26-27 season.
Yeah, well, it'd be great to have a good conversation about that at some point as well, Peter. So, because you're, I know you're a big advocate of at least that format, coming to life. So, well done for you. And then finally, Ben, the one that's been doing 2 jobs this whole hour and 20 minutes, running a session, talking to us, keeping all the kids in check. Any final thought? Thank you so much, mate, for doing both, because you didn't have to do both. So, it was very grateful. But any final thoughts? And if people want to find out more about you, what's the best way of doing that?
Look, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's been a great chat. I've learned so much being on here. I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, Twitter, whatever you call it nowadays. Just search my name, Ben Andreos. You'll find me. I'm sharing sessions all the time. I've got my own sort of syllabus that I've made up that is for sale on Etsy. I'm sharing stuff online all about that. So yeah, if you want to find me, just search my name on all these programs, and I'm always sharing sessions, always sort of trying to share. I'm going to try and share more videos, try and share more talk through of the sessions as well. I just need to feel more confident in front of a camera, because I'm not very confident in front of a camera. But look, it's been great listening to all of you. It really has, and I'm glad I've done 2 jobs today and got involved, because I never would have done it before otherwise. So yeah, really, really good. And I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome, Ben. Thanks so much. Look, part of all this stuff is always challenging ourselves, right? We all look at each other. I think I look at you guys, could compete kind of like aspirational. I'd like to get to your level of coaching and your understanding of the game and stuff. But I think we've all got that in us a bit, haven't we? We look at each other and think that. But yeah, look, it's been trying to cover this topic in an hour and 20 minutes. We could do it for 5 hours and still not get into lots of details. But hopefully what we've done is we've scratched surface on a few things, and we've got people thinking about stuff and just want to dig deeper around it, because not all the answers are here, definitely. But actually, if we're thinking more about our sessions and how we start, how we end them, how we deal with, the individual and group coaching, and how we build the session, link it in, and that thing about context, always key, and connecting through, I think we've covered a lot there for people to take away. So thank you so much. As always, you guys are the stars of the show. I hope you'll all come back on at some point soon and have a chat, either as a group again or individually. That would be brilliant. Doors always open. But whatever you do, thank you so much for today, and I look forward to catching up with you all soon. We've lost Ray, by the way, so I'm not abandoning Ray. I think we've lost this. He's dropped out. So Ray gets a lot of time to talk anyway. So it's not. I'm sure he'll catch up on the next one. But thanks everyone. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you all.
Thanks, Scott. Take care.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
This episode was brought to you in association with our friends at Soccer Coach Weekly. Established since 2006, Soccer Coach Weekly is a leading source of inspiration and advice for all grassroots coaches. Join thousands of youth soccer coaches just like you, saving time and effort in their goal of having the most effective, enjoyable and successful coaching journey for them and their players. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode.